The dining room is dim, the clink of silverware sharp against the tension. Cara, 32, sits at the edge of her family's annual reunion, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her father's voice cuts through the chatter. "So, Cara, still scrubbing floors for a living?" Laughter ripples around the table, but Cara's smile is brittle. She excuses herself, slipping into the hallway, where she pulls out her phone and opens a banking app. The screen glows. $1,247,392. Her secret. Her triumph. And the weight she's carried alone for years. Cara had always been invisible in her own family. Not in the literal sense. She was there at every Thanksgiving, every birthday, her dark curls tucked into a practical bun, her hands calloused from years of work. But to the Warrens, a clan of academics and professionals, Cara was a footnote, the youngest daughter who hadn't made much of herself. At 32, she was the house cleaner, the one they pitted with tight smiles and condescending pats on the shoulder. "Is the poor girl still cleaning other people's houses?" her father, Richard, would say, his tone equal parts jest and judgment. Cara let them believe it.
It was easier that way.
Her mornings began before dawn in her modest one-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon. The space was sparse but intentional: white walls, a second-hand couch, a single bookshelf crammed with dog-eared novels. Cara didn't need much. She brewed coffee, pulled on jeans and a faded t-shirt, and packed her cleaning supplies into a battered van. By 6 a.m., she was at her first client's house, a sleek modern home owned by a tech executive who barely acknowledged her presence. She didn't mind. Silence gave her space to think, to plan. Cara's business, Warren Clean, wasn't just a job, it was a quiet empire. What started 10 years ago as a side gig to pay off student loans had grown into a discreet but thriving operation. She employed a small team of cleaners, hand-picked for their work ethic, and served a roster of high-end clients who valued her reliability and discretion. Her rates were steep, her margins carefully calculated. Every dollar she didn't spend went into savings, investments, a portfolio she'd built with the precision of a chess master. Her family knew none of this. To them, she was just Cara, the girl with a mop. Today was no different. She scrubbed marble countertops, vacuumed Persian rugs, and polished stainless steel until it gleamed. Her last stop was a Victorian mansion in the West Hills, owned by a retired surgeon named Evelyn. Unlike most clients, Evelyn always offered tea, her silver hair catching the light as she chatted about books or gardening. "You're an artist, Cara," Evelyn said, watching her buff a hardwood floor. "You make things beautiful." Cara smiled, her chest warming. "Just doing my job, Evelyn." But Evelyn's words lingered as Cara drove home, the city's gray skyline blurring past.
Beauty.
It was what she'd always chased, even as a child sketching floor plans in her father's study while he graded papers. Richard Warren, a retired history professor, had seen her drawings and chuckled. "Stick to something practical, kiddo. You're not cut out for big dreams." Her older siblings, Mark, a lawyer, and Lena, a pediatrician, had followed his path, collecting degrees and accolades. Cara, with her community college certificate and cleaning business, was the outlier, the disappointment. At home, she showered off the day's grime and checked her phone. A voicemail from her mother, Diane, her voice bright but edged with expectation. "Cara, don't forget the family reunion this weekend. Your father's hoping you'll make it. It's been too long." Cara sighed, deleting the message. The reunion meant facing the same old questions, the same pitying looks. But she'd go. She always did. Family was a tether, even when it chafed. The reunion was held at her parents' sprawling house in Eugene, a 2-hour drive south. Cara arrived late, her van rattling into the driveway just as the sun dipped below the trees. The house was alive with noise, cousins chasing kids, aunts debating politics, her siblings holding court over wine. Cara slipped in quietly, hugging her mother and nodding at relatives. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, her only adornment a silver bracelet she'd bought herself after landing her first big client. Dinner was a blur of roasted chicken, laughter, and Richard's booming voice. When he turned to Cara, his eyes twinkling with that familiar mix of affection and condescension, she braced herself. "So, Cara, still scrubbing floors for a living?" The table erupted in chuckles, Mark smirking into his glass, Lena offering a sympathetic glance. Cara's smile was practiced, her voice light. "Yup, still at it." She excused herself soon after, her throat tight, and retreated to the hallway. Alone, she pulled out her phone, the banking app a silent rebellion. $1,247,392. She'd crossed the $1 million mark last year, a milestone she'd celebrated alone with a glass of cheap wine. The number was proof of her worth, but it couldn't erase the sting of her father's words. Back at the table, she caught Lena's eye. Her sister leaned over, whispering, "Don't let Dad get to you. He's just Dad." Cara nodded, but the words felt hollow. Lena didn't understand. None of them did. They saw her as small, stuck, while she was building something bigger than they could imagine. The drive home was quiet, the road stretching dark and endless. Cara's mind churned. She thought of Evelyn's words, "You're an artist," and her father's dismissal. She thought of her bank account, a secret she'd guarded for years. Part of her wanted to tell them, to watch their faces shift from pity to shock. But another part, deeper and rawer, feared their reaction. Would they respect her? Or would they find new ways to diminish her, to claim her success as luck or fluke? At her apartment, she sat at her small kitchen table, a notebook open in front of her. She'd started jotting down ideas months ago, not for cleaning, but for something new. A design consultancy, blending her eye for aesthetics with her knack for efficiency. It was a dream, still fragile, but it felt like the next step. She sketched a logo, her pen moving with purpose, and for the first time that day, she felt light, hopeful. But as she climbed into bed, doubt crept in. What if she failed? What if her family never saw her as more than the poor girl cleaning houses? The questions lingered, unanswered, as she drifted to sleep, the weight of her secret both a shield and a burden. The Portland rain fell in a steady drizzle, tapping against the windows of Cara's apartment as she packed her cleaning supplies for the day. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a text from her sister, Lena. "Dad's still talking about the reunion. You okay?" Cara stared at the screen, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She wanted to type the truth. "No, I'm not okay. I'm tired of being the punchline." Instead, she replied, "Fine. Just busy." She hit send, the lie settling like a stone in her chest. The reunion had left a bruise, and her family's voices, especially her father's, echoed in her mind, sharp and relentless. Cara's days were a rhythm of labor and solitude. She moved through her clients' homes with quiet efficiency, scrubbing sinks, folding linens, erasing traces of other people's lives. Her team of 3 cleaners handled the overflow, but Cara still took on her favorite clients herself, finding a strange comfort in the work. It was honest, tangible, unlike the intangible weight of her family's expectations. At Evelyn's Victorian mansion, she polished a mahogany banister, her reflection distorted in the wood. Evelyn, watering her begonias nearby, glanced over. "You look tired, dear. Everything all right?" Cara forced a smile, her hands pausing. "Just family stuff. You know how it is." Evelyn nodded, her eyes kind but piercing. "Family can be a mirror. Sometimes it shows you what you're not." She set down her watering can. "You're more than they think, Cara." The words sparked a flicker of hope, but it dimmed as Cara drove to her next job. Evelyn saw her, truly saw her, in a way her family never had. Her father, Richard, with his tweed jackets and lecture hall swagger, had always framed her as the underachiever. Her siblings, Mark and Lena, weren't much better. Mark with his smug anecdotes about courtroom victories, Lena with her gentle but patronizing concern. The microaggressions had piled up over years, a raised eyebrow when she mentioned her job, a quick subject change when she tried to share her life. At the reunion, it had been worse. Richard's scrubbing floors jab, Mark's chuckle, the way her aunt leaned over to whisper, "She's still so simple, isn't she?" Back at her apartment, Cara sat at her kitchen table, her notebook open to the design consultancy idea she'd sketched after the reunion. She'd added more details, a website mock-up, a list of potential services, space planning, aesthetic curation, efficiency audits. Her cleaning business had taught her how to read a room, to transform chaos into order. She could do more, be more. The thought lifted her, a fragile balloon of possibility. But then her phone rang, shattering the moment. It was her mother, Diane, her voice warm but laced with that familiar undertone of worry. "Cara, your father's planning a family dinner next weekend. He'd love for you to come. We all would." Cara's grip tightened on the phone. Another dinner, another round of veiled judgments. "I'll try, Mom. Work's been hectic." "Oh, honey, you work so hard," Diane said, and Cara could hear the pity. "Maybe you could take a break?" Lena was saying there's a community college course. "I'm fine, Mom." Cara cut in, her voice sharper than intended. "I like my work." Diane paused, then softened. "Of course, dear. Just think about it." The call ended, and Cara's hope curdled into disappointment. Even her mother, the kindest of them, saw her as someone to fix. She stood, pacing the small apartment, her eyes landing on a framed photo from her college graduation. She was 22, beaming, her father's arm around her. He'd been proud then, or so she'd thought. But pride had faded when she didn't follow his path, when she chose mops over manuscripts. The next day, Cara met with her accountant, a no-nonsense woman named Priya who handled Warren Clean's books. They sat in a cramped downtown office, spreadsheets spread across the desk. Priya pushed her glasses up, her voice brisk. "Your revenue's up 12% from last quarter. Investments are performing well. Your portfolio's at $1.29 million now. You're sitting pretty, Cara." Cara nodded, her expression neutral, but inside, her heart raced. $1.29 million. The number was a quiet roar, a testament to her discipline, her hustle. She'd started investing 5 years ago, funneling profits into index funds and real estate crowdfunding. Priya had been her guide, turning Cara's savings into wealth. But the triumph felt hollow, without someone to share it with. She couldn't tell her family, not yet. The thought of their shock, their sudden respect, was tempting, but it came with a shadow. Would they value her, or just her money? "Thanks, Priya," Cara said, tucking the financial summary into her bag. "Let's keep diversifying." As she left, her phone buzzed, a group text from Mark. "Dinner at Dad's Saturday. Don't bail, Cara. We need to talk about Mom's birthday plans." She sighed, the invitation feeling more like a summons. The emotional distance between her and her family was growing, a chasm widened by their assumptions. She wanted to bridge it, to show them who she was, but fear held her back. What if they didn't care? Saturday arrived, and Cara drove to Eugene, her van humming along the highway. The dinner was smaller than the reunion, just her parents, siblings, and Mark's wife, Claire. The dining room smelled of rosemary and wine, but the warmth was surface level. Richard dominated the conversation, recounting a lecture he'd guest taught at the university. Mark chimed in with a story about a high-profile case, while Lena shared a breakthrough with a patient. Cara listened, her contributions, when she offered them, met with polite nods before the topic shifted. As dessert was served, Richard turned to her, his smile teasing. "Cara, you must get tired of all that cleaning. Ever think about going back to school? Something with a future." The table stilled, all eyes on her. Cara's chest tightened, her practiced smile faltering. I like what I do, Dad. It's steady, pays the bills. Richard chuckled, waving a hand. Sure, but you could do more. You're not getting any younger. Mark smirked, adding, Yeah, sis, you could at least manage a cleaning company instead of doing the grunt work. Cara's fork clattered against her plate. She felt the heat of their gazes, the weight of their dismissal. I do manage a company, she said, her voice low but firm. Warren cleans mine. I built it. The room went quiet. Lena raised an eyebrow, curious, but Richard's laugh broke the tension. A little business, sure. But let's be real, Cara, it's not exactly a career. Her hope of being seen, of mattering, crumbled. She excused herself, stepping onto the porch, the night air cool against her flushed skin. She pulled out her phone, opening the banking app, $1.29 million. A number that meant nothing to them. Her throat burned with unshed tears, but beneath the hurt, a spark ignited. She was done hiding. Inside, she heard Mark's voice, muffled but clear. She'll always be the same old Cara. The words stung, but they also clarified something. She didn't need their approval. She needed to live her truth. As she drove home, a new resolve settled in her chest. She'd go to the next dinner, but not as the poor girl they pitied. She'd bring her ledger, her portfolio, her pride. And she'd let them see. The Portland sky was a heavy gray, mirroring the weight in Cara's chest as she loaded her van with cleaning supplies. The sting of her father's words from the family dinner, a little business, sure, lingered like a bruise. She'd come so close to telling them, to laying out the truth of Warren Clean's success, but Mark's dismissive, same old Cara had stopped her cold. She wasn't ready to expose her heart, not when their pity could twist her triumph into something small. Still, the resolve she'd felt driving home burned quietly, an ember of defiance. She was tired of being invisible. Her days were a blur of work, but they carried a new purpose. Cara spent her mornings managing her team, reviewing schedules, training a new hire, negotiating contracts with clients. Warren Clean wasn't just a job, it was a machine she'd built, efficient and profitable. At a sleek condo downtown, she met with a client, a startup CEO who raved about her team's attention to detail. You run a tight ship, Cara, he said, signing off on a 6-month contract. She nodded, her smile professional, but inside, pride swelled. This was her domain, where she was seen, respected. Between jobs, she carved out time for her design consultancy idea. At a coffee shop, she sketched layouts on her laptop, blending her cleaning expertise with her knack for aesthetics. She'd even reached out to a web developer, a friend of Evelyn's, to discuss a site for Warren Design. The dream felt closer, tangible, but it also scared her. Starting over meant risk, visibility, and the chance of failure her family seemed to expect. She pushed the fear aside, focusing on the work, but the thought of sharing it with her family crept in. What if she told them, not about the money, but the business, the vision? Could they finally see her? That evening, Cara visited Evelyn, her favorite client, whose Victorian mansion was a haven of warmth. As she dusted a bookshelf, Evelyn poured tea, her silver hair catching the lamplight. You're distracted today, Evelyn said, sliding a cup toward her. Something on your mind? Cara hesitated, her cloth pausing on a leather-bound book. Evelyn's kindness always disarmed her, coaxing truths she guarded elsewhere. It's my family, she admitted. They think I'm less than I am. I've built something real, but they don't know. I want to tell them, but I'm not sure they'd care. Evelyn's eyes softened. People cling to stories they know. You've outgrown theirs, Cara. Show them the new one, but only when you're ready. The words stirred hope, a fragile warmth in Cara's chest. She imagined sitting at her father's table, describing Warren Clean's growth, her design plans. Maybe Lena would listen, maybe her mother would beam. But then she remembered Richard's laugh, Mark's smirk, and the hope dimmed. They'd probably call it a cute hobby. She thanked Evelyn and left, the urge to reveal her truth warring with the fear of rejection. The next day, Cara's mother called, her voice bright but tentative. Cara, we're having a small get-together this weekend. Just us, your siblings, a few cousins. It'd mean a lot if you came. Cara's grip tightened on her phone, the dinner still raw in her memory. I'll check my schedule, Mom. Things are busy. Oh, I know, dear, Diane said, and Cara caught the familiar pity. But family's important. Your father's been talking about you. Cara's stomach twisted. Talking about what? Diane hesitated. He just worries you're stuck. He thinks you could do more with your life. The words cut deeper than Cara expected, reigniting the anger from the dinner. I'm not stuck, she said, her voice sharp. I'm doing fine, Mom. Better than fine. Diane's tone softened, placating. Of course, honey.
Just come, okay?
We miss you. Cara agreed, but as she hung up, disappointment settled heavy. Even her mother, who loved her fiercely, couldn't see past the poor girl narrative. She opened her banking app, the $1.29 million balance a silent defiance. She could walk into that get-together and drop the truth like a bomb, watch their jaws hit the floor. But the fantasy soured. She didn't want their awe, she wanted their respect. And that, she feared, was out of reach. The get-together was at her parents' house in Eugene, the familiar sprawl of it both comforting and oppressive. Cara arrived with a bottle of wine, her armor of jeans and a sweater in place. The living room buzzed with cousins and aunts, but the core was her immediate family: Richard, Diane, Mark, Lena, and Claire, Mark's wife. The air was thick with small talk, but Cara felt the undercurrent of judgment, the way eyes flicked to her when she spoke. At dinner, Richard held court, recounting a colleague's book deal. Lena shared a story about a patient's recovery, earning nods of approval. Cara stayed quiet, her fork tracing patterns in her mashed potatoes. Then Mark, his tone teasing, turned to her. So, Cara, how's the cleaning biz? Still got you on your knees scrubbing toilets? The table laughed, a sharp, collective sound. Cara's face burned, her hands clenching under the table. She met Mark's eyes, his smirk a challenge. Actually, she said, her voice steady, I run the business. I have a team, contracts, clients who trust me. It's not just scrubbing toilets. Mark raised an eyebrow, amused. Sure, sis. Sounds like a big deal. It is, Cara snapped, her voice rising. The room stilled, all eyes on her. She felt the weight of their attention, the chance to say more, to mention the revenue, the investments, the design consultancy. Her heart pounded, the truth clawing at her throat. But Richard's voice cut through, calm but dismissive. Let's not get carried away, he said, chuckling. It's good you're keeping busy, Cara, but let's talk about something else. Lena, how's that research grant coming? The moment shattered. Cara's resolve crumbled, her words swallowed by the familiar tide of her father's indifference. She stared at her plate, her chest tight with a mix of rage and heartbreak. Lena, sensing the tension, reached for her hand under the table, but Cara pulled away. She didn't need pity. She needed to be seen. Later, on the porch, Cara stood alone, the night air cool against her flushed skin. Diane joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. You seemed upset in there, she said softly. What's going on, honey? Cara's throat tightened, the urge to confess surging again. She could tell her mother about the business, the money, the dreams she was chasing. But the memory of Richard's dismissal, Mark's smirk, held her back. It's nothing, Mom, she lied, her voice barely audible. Just tired. Diane hugged her tighter, but the gesture felt hollow. As Cara drove home, the emotional conflict churned, hope that her family could change, disappointment that they hadn't. She was growing, her accomplishments stacking like bricks in a wall they couldn't see. But the confrontation at dinner had clarified something. She couldn't keep waiting for their approval. The truth was hers to wield, and soon, she'd decide when to let it fall. The air in Cara's apartment was thick with the scent of coffee and determination. She sat at her kitchen table, her laptop open to a draft website for Warren Design, the consultancy she'd been nurturing in secret. The logo, a clean, modern blend of lines and curves, felt like a promise, a step toward a future where she wasn't just the cleaning girl. But the memory of the last family get-together gnawed at her. Her father's dismissive chuckle, Mark's taunting smirk, the way her words about Warren Clean had been swept aside, it all fueled a fire in her chest. She was done shrinking. The truth of her success, her $1.29 million empire, was a weight she no longer wanted to carry alone. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. "Cara, we're coming to Portland tomorrow. Surprise visit. Dinner at your place? Just me, Dad, Lena, Mark, Claire. 6 p.m. Cara's stomach dropped. Her apartment, modest and unassuming, was her sanctuary, not a stage for her family's scrutiny. She typed a quick "sure, sounds great," but her heart raced. Tomorrow. The timing felt like fate or a trap. She glanced at her notebook, where she'd scribbled financial summaries and design plans. Maybe this was the moment. Maybe it was time to show them. The next day, Cara worked with frenetic energy, cleaning a client's penthouse while her mind churned. She imagined the dinner, her family crowded in her small dining area, their usual jabs about her little job. She pictured herself sliding her financial portfolio across the table, watching their faces shift from pity to shock. The fantasy was thrilling, but it came with a shadow of fear. What if they didn't respect her? Even then. What if they saw her wealth as a fluke, not a triumph? She pushed the doubts aside, focusing on the task at hand, but the tension coiled tighter with each passing hour. By afternoon, she was back home, preparing for the visit. Her apartment was spotless, a testament to her craft, but deliberately understated. No flashy decor, no hints of her wealth. She cooked a simple meal, roasted vegetables, grilled chicken, a salad, her hands steady despite the storm inside. As she set the table, her eyes landed on a manila folder by her laptop, containing her latest financial statement from Priya. She hesitated, then tucked it into a drawer. Not yet. She'd know when the moment was right. The doorbell rang at 5:55 p.m., and Cara's family spilled in, their voices loud in the small space. Diane hugged her tightly, her eyes warm but searching. Richard surveyed the apartment, his expression neutral, but his silence heavy. Mark and Claire carried wine, Mark's grin already edged with mischief. Lena, quieter, offered a soft smile, sensing Cara's nerves. They settled around the table, the meal unfolding with the familiar rhythm of family, small talk, laughter, stories that didn't include Cara. Richard, fork in hand, turned to her mid-conversation. "This place is cozy, Cara. Still managing with that cleaning gig." The question, innocent on the surface, carried the usual sting. Cara's smile tightened. "It's more than a gig, Dad. It's a business. I told you that." He waved a hand, chuckling. Right. Your little company. Keeps you busy, I'm sure." Mark leaned in, his tone teasing. "Come on, sis. You're not still out there scrubbing floors yourself, are you? Hire some help already." Claire laughed, and even Lena's sympathetic glance felt like a knife. Cara's chest burned, the ember of defiance flaring into a flame. She set her fork down, her voice low but firm. "I do have help. I employ a team. Warren Clean's been profitable for years. I'm not just scrubbing floors." The table stilled, her words hanging in the air. Richard raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Profitable? What? Enough to cover this place?" Cara's heart pounded, the manila folder in the drawer calling to her. She could end this now, show them the numbers, the truth. But before she could decide, Mark smirked, his voice dripping with condescension. "Let's not get carried away. It's a nice hustle, Cara, but it's not like you're rolling in it. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick with tension. Cara's hands trembled, her resolve hardening. She stood, her chair scraping against the floor, and walked to the drawer. Her family watched, confused, as she pulled out the folder and set it on the table, her voice steady despite the storm inside. You want to know what I've been doing? Here. She opened the folder, revealing the financial statement. The numbers were stark, undeniable. $1.29 million in assets, revenue streams from Warren Clean, investment returns. She slid it toward Richard, her eyes locked on his. This is my business. This is what I've built. While you've been laughing, I've been working. Silence swallowed the room. Richard's face froze, his eyes scanning the page. Diane's hand flew to her mouth, a gasp escaping. Mark's smirk vanished, replaced by wide-eyed disbelief. Lena leaned forward, reading the figures, her expression shifting from shock to awe. Claire blinked, speechless, her wineglass forgotten. Cara, Diane whispered, her voice trembling. Is this real? It's real, Cara said, her voice breaking but strong. I've been saving, investing, growing my business for 10 years. I didn't tell you because I didn't think you'd care. You've always seen me as the poor girl cleaning houses. Richard's jaw tightened, his fingers gripping the paper. Why didn't you say anything? His tone was sharp, almost accusatory, but there was a crack in it, something like guilt. Why? Cara's laugh was bitter, tears stinging her eyes. Because you never asked. You never thought I could be more than a disappointment. Every dinner, every reunion, it's the same, still scrubbing floors? I'm done letting you define me. The words poured out, raw and unfiltered, years of hurt spilling over. Diane's eyes welled up, her hand reaching for Cara's, but Cara stepped back, her chest heaving. Mark shifted uncomfortably, his voice low. Sis, we didn't know. I mean, damn, this is a lot. A lot. Cara's voice rose, trembling with emotion. This is my life. I built this while you laughed, while you pitied me. And you know what? I don't need your approval anymore. Lena, quiet until now, stood, her face soft but resolute. Cara, I'm sorry. I should have seen you. Really seen you. This is incredible. Her words were a balm, but they couldn't erase the years of dismissal. Richard cleared his throat, his voice gruff. We didn't mean to hurt you, Cara. We wanted more for you. More. Cara's tears fell now, her voice a mix of anger and heartbreak. This is more. I'm proud of what I've done. I just wanted you to be proud too. The room fell silent again, the weight of her truth reshaping the space between them. Diane sobbed softly, Lena's eyes glistened, and Mark looked away, his bravado gone. Richard stared at the statement, his expression unreadable, but the flicker of respect in his eyes was new, unfamiliar. Cara wiped her tears, her voice steadying. I'm not asking for apologies. I just want you to know who I am. Not your story of me, mine. The dinner ended quietly, her family leaving with subdued goodbyes. Lena hugged her tightly, whispering, I'm proud of you. Diane promised to call, her eyes still wet. Richard lingered last, his hand on the door. You've done well, Cara, he said, his voice low. I misjudged you. It wasn't enough, not after years of hurt, but it was a start. As their cars disappeared into the night, Cara stood in her empty apartment, the folder still open on the table. The emotional shock of the night, her family's disbelief, the shift in their eyes, left her raw but unburdened. She'd unveiled her truth, and the dynamics had changed, fragile and uncertain. She felt the first stirrings of freedom, but also the ache of a family she'd longed to belong to, now fractured by her revelation. The morning after the dinner, Cara's apartment felt different, quieter, lighter, as if the air itself had shifted. The manila folder with her financial statement still sat on the table, its pages creased from her family's hands. She traced the numbers, $1.29 million, a reminder of her triumph, but also of the raw, jagged night that had finally set her truth free. Her chest ached with a mix of relief and grief. She'd spent years hiding her success, fearing her family's judgment, only to find that revealing it didn't heal the wounds they'd left.
It exposed them.
Now, at 32, Cara stood at a crossroads, her heart heavy but her resolve clear. She would define her worth, with or without their approval. The days that followed were a blur of routine and reflection. Cara threw herself into Warren Clean, meeting with her team to streamline operations, signing a new client, a boutique hotel chain that would double her revenue. She spent evenings refining Warren Design, her consultancy dream, finalizing the website with her developer. The work grounded her, a tether to the life she'd built. But her family's faces, Richard's stunned silence, Diane's tears, Mark's discomfort, Lena's awe, haunted her. Their reactions had been a mirror, reflecting years of misunderstanding, and Cara wasn't sure what came next. Her phone stayed quiet for a week, the silence both a relief and a pang. Then Lena called, her voice tentative but warm. "Cara, I can't stop thinking about what you showed us. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner.
Can we talk?"
They met at a Portland cafe, the rain streaking the windows as they sat with steaming mugs. Lena's eyes were earnest, her usual polish softened by guilt. "I was blind," she said, her voice breaking. "I let Dad's narrative about you stick. You're incredible, Cara. I want to know you, the real you." Cara's throat tightened, hope flickering. Lena's apology was genuine, a bridge where she'd expected none. "It hurt," she admitted, her voice low. "Being the family joke. I kept my success secret because I thought you'd twist it, make it less." Lena reached for her hand, her grip firm. "I get why you hid it, but I'm proud of you. I want to be part of your life, if you'll let me." The words were a balm, soothing years of isolation. Cara nodded, tears prickling her eyes. "I'd like that." It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was a start, a fragile thread of connection she could choose to nurture. Her parents were slower to reach out. Diane sent a long text, her words careful. "Cara, I'm so proud of what you've done. I wish I'd known sooner. Your father, and I want to see you. Can we come by?" Cara stared at the message, her heart torn. Part of her wanted to open the door, to rebuild. But another part, raw from years of dismissal, needed distance. She replied, "I need some time, Mom. I'll let you know." It was honest, and it felt like power, choosing herself over obligation. Mark's response came via a brief email, awkward but sincere. "Hey, sis. I was a jerk. Didn't realize how big you'd made it. Let's grab a beer sometime?" Cara read it twice, a wry smile tugging at her lips. Mark's pride made apologies rare, and this was as close as he'd get. She didn't reply, not yet. His words were a gesture, but they didn't erase the years of taunts. She'd decide later if he deserved a place in her new life. Richard, predictably, was the last. 2 weeks after the dinner, he called, his voice gruff but softer than usual. "Cara, I owe you an apology. I didn't see what you'd built. I was wrong to assume, well, a lot. Can we talk?" She agreed to meet him at a park, neutral ground. They sat on a bench, the November air crisp, leaves crunching underfoot. Richard looked older, his tweed jacket worn, his eyes searching hers. "I pushed you too hard," he said, his voice low. "I wanted you to be like Mark or Lena, but you're something else. I'm proud, Cara. I just wish I'd said it sooner." The words hit her like a wave, stirring a longing she'd buried. She wanted to believe him, to feel the pride she'd craved as a child. But the hurt was too deep, the years of scrubbing floors too heavy. "I needed to hear that a long time ago," she said, her voice steady but thick with emotion.
"You made me feel small, Dad.
I built something huge and you never asked. Richard's face crumpled, a rare vulnerability. I know. I failed you. Can you forgive me? Cara looked away, her eyes on the horizon. Forgiveness wasn't a switch she could flip. I'm working on it, she said finally. But I need space. I'm not the girl you thought I was, and I'm figuring out who I am without your shadow. He nodded, his silence heavy with regret. As they parted, Cara felt a bittersweet release. His apology was a step, but it didn't erase the past. She was choosing her own path now, one where his approval was no longer the measure of her worth. Months later, Cara stood in the lobby of the boutique hotel, her first major Warren design project. The space was her vision, clean lines, warm textures, a balance of function and beauty. Her client, the hotel owner, shook her hand, beaming. You've got a gift, Cara. This place feels alive. She smiled, pride swelling in her chest. Warren Design was small but growing, a new chapter built on the foundation of Warren Clean. Her portfolio had climbed to $1.4 million, a quiet testament to her discipline, but the money was secondary now. She was creating, thriving, defining herself on her terms. Her relationship with her family was evolving, uneven but real. Lena had become a regular presence, visiting for coffee, asking about Cara's work with genuine interest. Diane called weekly, her tone warmer, more curious. Mark sent occasional texts, clumsy but trying. Richard remained distant, respecting her boundaries, though he'd sent a letter, handwritten, praising her remarkable achievements. Cara kept it in a drawer, unsure if she'd respond. One evening, alone in her apartment, Cara sat at her table, a glass of wine in hand. She opened her notebook, now filled with sketches, plans, and dreams. The girl who'd hidden her worth was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her value. The revelation at the dinner had shattered her family's narrative, but it had also freed her. She didn't need their validation anymore. She had her own. As the city hummed outside, Cara raised her glass, a quiet toast to herself. She'd weathered the hurt, the doubt, the years of being unseen. And she'd come through stronger, her roots deep, her future wide open. The road ahead was hers to walk, and she'd do it with her head high, her heart whole, knowing that resilience was the truest wealth of all.